Okay, what's up, everybody? Good morning. Welcome to a Friday edition of Morning Scone presented by Brock, the Baton Rouge Orthopedic Clinic, and Parish Construction and Roofing. You need an orthopedist, you go to Brock. You need a roof, you call Parish. Remember, Brock, Rock, and Wine coming up 3 weeks from manana, 3 weeks from tomorrow, Saturday, July 27th. E-Rock and I will be in that number and hope to see many of you there as well. So y'all come join us over at Brock Rock and Wine, all benefiting the Brock Foundation inside of Tiger Stadium. Gonna be really cool. Stadium Club at Tiger Stadium, and wine, food, live music, all that good stuff. Going to be a good time. So, okay, we got a lot to get to today. Today's Locked on LSU is already live. Talked about the Zion Williams commitment, which did happen during this show yesterday, but I figured we'd sort of do a recap of all the recruiting news. And then I do have some baseball stuff to get to as well. Gavin Keelan, the big target from Louisville, has made his decision. It's Tennessee. So where does LSU go next? We'll get to that. Thanks for being there. YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. Facebook, please follow along on the Matt Moscona page. We appreciate the profile. We appreciate that as well. Let's see. Boom. So, all right, we'll say some good mornings. We'll get to your comments. Let me run through this pretty quickly here. So Zion Williams committed. We got that news during this show yesterday. 4-star defensive tackle out of the state of Texas. It's an important get for Bo Davis and for Brian Kelly. You are going to have you're going to need defensive tackles. You remember what you have this year, guys like Gio Paez, Jacobian Guillory, Jalen Lee, all veteran guys who are in their last year of college eligibility. So you're losing those three. After that, after those three, remember who you have left is who could come back for the following season. JVR Suggs, you have Grand Valley, Preston Hickey, who's a walk-on, your preferred walk-on, transfer from Oklahoma State. Kimo Makanaeoli, who has another year of eligibility, who just moved from offensive line, and then Sean Washington, who's a JUCO guy, and then McKinley, Johnson, and Bro, the three freshmen. So you got bodies, but you got after this year, you'll have no real experience. So you need to keep building up those numbers at defensive tackle. And Tigers may very well do that today because Friday they're expecting 2 more announcements. So Damian Shanklin, who is the number 86 overall player in the country in the composite on 24/7, has him as high as like 48. He's an edge. He's the number 1 player in the state of Indiana. And y'all know what I say. Like, doesn't make a lot of sense to go far and cross states to go recruit players unless they're difference-making players like Bryce Underwood. You go to California to recruit Eli Ricks. You go to Florida South Florida to recruit Patrick Peterson. You'll go to Indiana to get Damian Shanklin when one service has him as the number 48 overall player in the country. You get an elite edge. Yes, go get that guy. And he is expected to pick LSU today. And then Brandon Brown is a current Texas commit from the state of Florida. He's a 4-star defensive tackle. He committed to Bo Davis at Texas, and LSU is expected to flip him today. So could be even more good news on the recruiting front. So June was a little quiet on the football recruiting front for Brian Kelly as they were having a lot of camps and everything. But July is starting here with a bang as they've already got Zion Williams commitment, and they're expecting to get Damian Shanklin and Brandon Brown today as well. DeCorian Moore surprised everybody picked Oregon, but I thought he was going to Texas. I'm glad he went to Oregon. Say it all the time. If you can't get a guy, you just hope he goes where he can't hurt you. And Oregon would qualify. So I'm glad he's not at Texas. You don't have to see him. Go to Oregon. Go play in the Big Ten and enjoy those flights from Oregon to Rutgers. Anyway. And then the last thing, and then we'll get to your questions, comments, all that good stuff. So thanks for being there. Last thing I had is Gavin Keelan, the shortstop from Louisville, picked Tennessee. I was told that LSU made their most sizable baseball NIL offer ever for Gavin Keelan, and it still wasn't enough. Tennessee still spent more. So that's a bummer. You know, White Hensler sticking at A&M like we talked about. Fisher from Ole Miss, I'm told, is also going to Tennessee. Tennessee's spending, y'all. I mean, they just won the national championship. Their boosters are pumped and they're spending. One name, like as you just look at who's left in the portal, one interesting name is Daniel Dickerson. He's from Utah Valley. You might remember Eddie Smith was on Jay Johnson's staff, his first staff, and then he got the head coaching job at Utah Valley. So there is a connection there. But Daniel Dickerson had a great season last year. He had 367 with 18 homers. He led the team in batting average, slugging, hits, total bases, stolen bases. And, you know, I can't say definitively that that's a better option than Braswell, because we've seen Braswell hit over 300 in conference play and was really good defensively in the second. He struggled defensively in the first half of the year, but he was really good defensively in the second half. So I don't know, but that's just another name I think you could keep an eye on. You have a tie there with Eddie Smith being the head coach, and pretty accomplished player. He was a semifinalist for the Dick Hauser trophy this year, which goes to the best player in college baseball. He was third-team All-American, first-team All-Conference. So just another name to keep an eye on. So, all right, let's say some good mornings. Y'all fire away if you've got anything. You know the drill. YouTube, smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Facebook, please follow along on the profile. I'll just keep mentioning it. Of course, for years we did the show on the Facebook, my professional page. Facebook changed their algorithm stuff, so now we're going live from the profile, and I'm sharing it to my page. We're going live from the profile, so please follow the profile. It's the picture is it's me and Erica in New York. I mean, I'm sure y'all know it by now, but it's like there we go. It's that. So just follow there if you would. That would be very helpful. And that's how you get notifications and all when we go live, etc. Okay, let's say some good mornings here. Devin Kelly, good morning. Cliff Nelson, good morning. Travis Whitney, good morning. Guy Brooks, happy Friday. Abner Neal, great start adding defensive linemen. Yes, sir. Tigers up to 13 commits now, and they should be at 15 after today. Donald and me, what's good? Devin, pretty sure it's the first time I've ever had the first comment. There you go, dude. You were ready. You're ready. Usually it's a race. Ethan, good morning. Usually it's a race with trivia to be first, to drop the first in there. Where are we? Joseph Baggard, good morning from Dallas. All right. Cliff, Baton Rouge Brock, still greater than Baton Rouge than Hammond Brock. That's a joke because we were pointing at that several months back. Our friends at Brock said, "Hey, would you mind pushing the Hammond Clinic for all the people in Tangipahoa Parish?" And so then it became this thing about Tangipahoa, or is it Tangipahoa? Because I was saying Tangipahoa, and some people from Tangipahoa said it's Tangipahoa. So I said, well, I'll just say it really fast like Tangipahoa, so you don't know if I'm saying the A or not. Anyway, but Abner has mentioned several times that they've gone to the Brock Clinic there in Hammond, and it's great. They're great people. Where are we? Okay. Jamie Hodges, good morning. Russell Jory, good morning. Hey, Vernell, good morning. And the Roland Sconers, TGIF, can't wait to see LSU and the Saints this season. I'm with you, man. Definitely excited for LSU football season. The Saints, I fear, we're not going to have so great a year, but I was really excited to see, I think Matt Miller put out a mock draft earlier this week. Matt Miller from ESPN, like a way too early mock draft. And he had the Saints picking 10th, which is not great, but had him taken Quinn Ewers, and I would be so pumped if that were the case. Brett DeGrow, good morning. Larry, Bubba, good morning, y'all. Chance, the Corey Morris committee to everybody, but Texas has to drive their fans crazy. Chance, that is odd, man. I mean, typically it doesn't always work this way, but the guys that follow recruiting have a very difficult job, but do a really good job, right? So much of that is cultivating relationships with guys in high school and their coaches and their families, and then the college coaches as well. Because there's a lot of different ways that you can get information, right? You can get information from the player and his family, from the college coaches that are recruiting him, from his high school coaches. And you cultivate those relationships. And when it all matches up, then you start to tell that story. And when everybody had DeCorian Moore going to Texas, he pulled a fast one. So, but that's why I always say I don't envy the guys that cover recruiting. It's why I don't do it. Because I mean, how many times at 16, 17, 18 did you and I change our minds on a whim? I mean, you don't have enough life experience to know what at that age is going to be best for you. So you make the best decision. But yeah, you change your mind a lot when you're a kid. And all those guys that did all the work, guys and girls, the men and women that cover recruiting did all that work. And you think you got the story, and DeCorian Moore's going to Texas, and then no, he ain't. Changed his mind. He's going to Oregon. Okay, what happened? I don't know. Oregon came in, a bunch of Nike money at the end. I don't know, whatever. But I'm excited. Like, I would rather DeCorian Moore go to Oregon, where you never have to play him unless you're potentially in a playoff, as opposed to Texas, where he's in your league. So, yes, go to Oregon. Jeff, what up, my dude? Hope you're doing great, man. Got to catch up soon, Jeff. It's been too long, man. Tommy, Chance makes me laugh. Never seen a more arrogant fan base. Who were y'all talking about? Oh, Texas. Oh, okay, got it. You, Chance is comment about Texas. Got it. Brett, any news on Toviano, how he's progressing? Will he play cornerback or safety? Toviano was running cornerback in the spring. And keep in mind, right now, the only coach that's working with the players is Jake Flint and the strength staff, right? The football coaches can't have on-field contact with the players. So any work they're doing on field is player-led. So, I mean, we got to watch Toviano in spring, and he was running at cornerback. And I think that's probably where he sticks. I mean, remember, they went out and added Jordan Gilbert at safety. They added Austin Osbury at safety in the portal. Deshaun McBride, the freshman out of Denham, who really looks the part, man. He looks really, really good. It did in spring. It was running back there at safety as well. If they moved Sage Ryan to safety. So I guess my point there is, Brett, I think Toviano is sticking at corner. It's just, how does that cornerback rotation work itself out throughout fall camp? Jesse, good morning. Been under the weather. Been listening today, today. Hope you have a great Friday. Thanks, Jesse. Same to you, man. Hope you feel better. Cortland, good morning. Cajun Country, nice take on LSU not getting elite transfers. I can't lie. I hate seeing these guys pick other schools, but this is the new era of college sports. I guess you're talking about my take from Locked On LSU, because we did talk about Gavin Keelan picking Tennessee, and I know there's a lot of LSU fans that are looking and going, man, like, how did LSU miss on all these guys, right? Well, I mean, Texas A&M spent a bunch of money to retain its roster, and that was their goal in hiring Michael Early, and so they did. They retained Grahovac and Laviolette and Caden Kent and Wyatt Hensler, who was a commit. So good for, like, they spent their money retaining their roster. Arkansas leads with pitching with Dave Van Horn, so they spent a bunch of money on pitching. They got Zach Root. Tennessee led with offense and infielders, which is, they were able to go get Gavin Keelan, and I'm told they're going to get Fisher, the third baseman from Ole Miss, and Doyle, the left-handed pitcher as well. But my point is, and they were kind of like those guys, like roommates and good friends and all this. So he hasn't announced that yet, but I'm told that's where Fisher's going. He's got to deal with Tennessee, and I think with Jay at LSU, it's been a good mix of addressing needs. And I'll continue to say this, man. I know it's different to see LSU, because of the status and the stature in college baseball, continue to go after players and miss on them. But it further illustrates the point that I've said for several years here, which is what a lot of people don't like to hear me say, or did. I got a lot of criticism for it. Like, and I think everyone is seeing it now. Like LSU's pockets aren't as deep, so you're you're going to be competitive in NIL with a lot of stuff, but you're going to have to. Um, but you're also going to have to get creative in the way you do things. But keep in mind, like, I think this is like the best way I can say it, right? If you look at LSU's roster for next year, like you feel good about your outfield. You got Ashton Larson, you got Jake Brown, Josh Pearson. I mean, it's your starting outfield. Then you add Chris Stanfield, who's a multi-year starter at Auburn, to the mix as well. So you feel good about your outfield. Milam's going to start somewhere on the infield. Blaze Priester's probably your starting catcher, and you feel really good about that. Either Luis Hernandez, Eddie Yaman, Dalton Beck. I mean, that combination there is going to be your first base DH in whatever order. So really what you need to figure out is, short and third. Well, the more I talk to people who cover college baseball and around the program, they feel really good about Tanner Reeves. So Tanner Reeves is a JUCO guy coming in that's already signed with LSU, and they feel really good about Reeves potentially being a starter somewhere on the infield. He can start at second, third, so he can start at any of those positions. And what if you get Braswell back as well, or maybe like I mentioned, Daniel Dickinson from Dickerson from Utah Valley potentially. I don't know. I mean, that's a guy that would make sense, right? I mean, he's Eddie Smith was on Jay Johnson's staff at LSU. He's a really good player. Was, first team all conference, third team all America, Dick Hauser semifinalist, hit 367 with 18 bombs. Yeah, I mean, that would make sense too if you want to target that guy. So I guess my point is like, and then of course your pitching is fine. I mean, you have Chase Shores coming back off of injury, who, if he's healthy and right, Chase Shores will be an SEC Pitcher of the Year candidate. I think I'm excited to see Cade Anderson in year 2. If Griffin Herring comes back and is in the rotation, you had a Devin Sheeran who's 98 and one of the best arms in the entire portal, maybe the best right-handed arm in the portal. Zach Cohen, who's a starter for Wofford, who might be a starter for you, might be a middle relief innings eater. I mean, I guess my point is that, yeah, you added Chandler Dorsey, who was an upgrade who's coming in as your closer. You know what I mean? Jacob Myers, who was one of the best, strikeout per innings, pitch ratio pitchers in the country. You see my point? Like, the cupboard isn't bare. I mean, it stings to miss on some of these high-profile transfer guys that you'd love to get. But if those guys are just in the portal looking for a bag, like, you're not going to get those guys because you're not going to pay what other teams are going to be willing to pay. So that's just kind of where it is. Anyway, I know there's a little bit of a diatribe, but I think that's what Cajun Country was talking about there. Ethan, LSU will probably never be top 25 NIL, but I guess we as fans will just have to put trust in the coaches. They can get good, undervalued players and players that want to be here, not for the money. I wouldn't even say like good, undervalued players. Like, I mean, I just ran through, 3 guys that are in, everybody's top 20 or top 20 portal rankings. So anyway, Strong Side, good morning. Hope you all had a wonderful 4th. We did. Hope you did as well. Rager's, is LSU baseball falling behind on NIL? Yes. I mean, I don't even know that it's necessarily falling behind. It's just that 2 years ago, teams were not spending in NIL for baseball. LSU was. And I'm not talking about 6 figures. Well, nobody getting 6 figures or anything like that. But what's happened is subsequently teams have decided to invest in baseball. And so that's what you're seeing now. Spurge, good morning. Patrick P. Maui Ahuna all over again with Keelan. It's a great point. Maui Ahuna was a shortstop from Kansas that LSU wanted. Tennessee went and spent for him. And How did that work? Maui Ahuna didn't have a great year last year at Tennessee, and they didn't win the College World Series two seasons ago. But yes, similar, very similar. Cortland, Braswell finished strong. You'd hope it would carry over if he came back. Yeah, I would take a senior starter who's had 3 years as a starter in the SEC. I mean, almost over almost anybody else you brought in. I'm not saying someone that you brought in couldn't beat him out, but you know what you have there with Braswell. And by the way, also, I would also really like Braswell if you didn't have to bat him at the top of your lineup. And if you stack your lineup the way they're doing right now, maybe you wouldn't. Maybe he could be even more effective. He's like a 6 or 7 hole hitter. Nicole, good morning. Wendell Norman, what's up? Brian Turner, LSU will finish top 3 recruiting in 2025, possibly number 1 if Jakeem Stewart reclassifies. I think top 3 is a safe bet for sure. Dawson, good morning. Joel, is it safe to assume LSU will probably be out on any high-profile portal kids in baseball going forward, assuming NIL is in play, of course? I'll tell you this, specifically with Gavin Keelan. The LSU and Tennessee situations were very comparable. I told you that what I was told was that was the most NIL money that LSU has offered for baseball. They offered Gavin Keelan, and Tennessee offered more. Not much more, but it was more. So you have the last 2 national champions. You have 2 great coaches, great recruiters. You know what I mean? And then and NIL offers that were comparable with Tennessee's was a little higher. So, I mean, he chose to go play for the coach that just won a championship this year and who drives a Maserati to the field. Whatever. Ball Navy, morning from Rocky Top. Hope you all had fun and safe 4th. Excited to see Tennessee land Keelan. Who do you think LSU will target out of the portal moving forward? Love the show as always. Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, I don't know. I've told y'all effectively all the names I know that LSU's targeting and has targeted, right? But they can't be done because just if you look at numbers with what you have coming in, who you have coming back, you're going to have somewhere after the draft between like 8 and 10 more roster spots. So they're not done adding players. And I was told earlier in the week that the coaches were like crisscrossing the country looking for players. And it could be anywhere. It could be high school guys or JUCO guys or portal guys or whoever. The one name that I mentioned to you earlier that would make sense. Again, we'll see. But Daniel Dickerson's in the portal from Utah Valley, and Eddie Smith was on Jay Johnson's staff. He's now the head coach at Utah Valley. So is that someone they go target? I don't know. Do they make a strong pitch to Braswell to come back? Maybe. We'll see. John Malawsaw, good morning. How's Drew? Drew's good, man. Thank you, John. Appreciate it, man. Let's see. Dawson, that commit from the DL was huge. I agree. And you should get 2 more today. Remember, if you're just joining, Damian Shanklin, number 1 edge out of the state of Indiana. He's the number 86 overall prospect in the composite. He announces today he's expected to pick LSU. Same with Brandon Brown, defensive tackle out of Florida. He's a 4-star who has been committed to Texas and Bo Davis and is expected to flip to LSU today. Brian, losing on Moore is disappointing. Wide receiver isn't the reason why lost by 21 to Florida State. Poor D-line play, interior O-line play, cornerback. Those are the LSU recruiting priorities. Hi. You want to come see Dad's show? You want to come say hi to Dad's show? You want to come say hi to Dad's show? All right. Latched onto his mama like a little koala bear. Come see. Oh, my goodness. Well, hi. Well, good morning. Can you say hi to Dad's show? What makes that sound? What makes that sound? Oh. The blower. Yep. Can you say hi to Dad's show? Hi, Dad's show. Good morning. Good morning. The days of Gumorgan are gone. He actually says good morning now. What do you do? Okay, now you want to go. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for saying good morning to everybody. Okay. Now he wants to go watch his iPad. Okay. Please smash the like button if you would. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Mr. Wallace, I'm putting those guitar picks in the mail on Monday. Thank you, man. Travis Whitney, if you had to guess, what will Nussmeier's stats look like at the end of the year? I would hope Nuss throws for he's got to throw for over 3,000 yards because he's not going to run, right? I would hope you're looking at something like, well, here's the other tricky part too. Let me say, Travis, at the end of the regular season, because there's obviously the possibility you could make the SC championship, the college football playoffs. So you could end up playing anywhere like from 13, 14, 15, 16 games, depending on playoffs. So I'm not necessarily telling you I think that they're going to play in 16 games, but that obviously would inflate the numbers if he plays more games. So let me just say through a 12-game regular season, I would hope you're talking about over 3,000 yards. And I would hope you're looking at over 20 touchdowns and single-digit interceptions. If Nuss does that, if through 12 games you're talking about 3,000 yards passing, let's call it 24 touchdowns, which should average out to 2 a game, and single-digit interceptions, then I think LSU is baseline 10-2 and a playoff team. Cortland, I knew LSU's pockets weren't as deep. I was worried about NIL. If I was anti-NIL, it was solely because I doubted LSU's ability to compete. Tanya, morning. Enjoying Locked On. Thanks for calming us all down. You got it, Tanya. Thanks so much. I appreciate you for listening. Yeah, so, I mean, what Tanya's referring to is I did kind of go through what I sort of just talked. I went in greater detail, but I kind of just talked about what we talked about there as far as the baseball roster. Hey, Malcolm, good morning. Aaron Hornsby, good morning. Stephen Miller, what up, my dude? I know we don't put too much stock into Cape Cod stats, but Yaman's having a tough go up there this summer, hitting 0.45 after a month up there. That's pretty glaring. You know what I want to do, Stephen? And thanks for the update on that. Definitely want to look at guys in the past and how they've done in the Cape, or just in summer ball. Some that have had a lot of success and some that haven't. But you're right. That's a struggle. Trivia, good morning. Let's see. Ready for the USC game, but it wasn't a Saturday night. I wish it was on. Yeah. The benefit of playing that Sunday game is you get a standalone, right? I mean, you're the only game in the country and all eyes are watching you. I would agree also, though, for travel and show purposes, Saturday would be better for us because we'll end up traveling on Monday, and I'll probably miss AFR on Monday traveling back. Rick, if Braswell goes in the draft, does Milam move to short? Good question, Rick. And that is absolutely a possibility. They feel like he has the range, the arm, all that to play short, and that would absolutely be a possibility. Is that Milam would move to short? Sorry, just read that one. Brian, feel much better about USC than I did Florida State all last summer. Florida State had personnel advantages. USC not so much. USC and LSU this year just feel like that's Spider-Man meme where they're like Spider-Man's pointing at each other. They're just very comparable. I mean, you're losing the last 2 Heisman Trophy winners. Both defenses last year were atrocious. New defensive coordinators coming in. It just feels very, very similar. Cortland bonus, Braswell's a good kid, maybe becomes a great senior leader. I would agree with that. Rocky, good morning. Hope everyone had a great 4th. Yes, sir. Rick, good morning. We missed on more, but it doesn't hurt his bad since he's going to Oregon. Bingo. Make defense great again. Matt, any nuggets of info that Coach Pete may have given you when you had lunch with him the other day? I don't know that I want to share that. We sat down and had lunch for 2.5 hours, man, and I mostly just listened to him talk. And he told me some awesome stories, and we did talk a little bit about this team and his thoughts on it. But I would rather get him on the air and let him say those things than me try to relate it secondhand. So I'm effectively dodging your question. So I apologize for that. But I will reach out to Coach Pete and see if I can get him on the air. We can talk about it. Strong side. Did you see the NCAA putting a salary cap on NIL in the future? Absolutely not. Strong side. There are And I've been told that for 2 years now. There are lawsuits already drawn if anybody ever tries to cap NIL. Because in effect, what NIL is from a legal standpoint are marketing dollars. How can you tell someone what they're worth in a marketing sense, right? I mean, that's part of free enterprise. So no, they will never cap that. They can't. So no, I don't see that happening. What will be interesting is whenever the rev share starts next year, and these athletic departments start sharing $22 million in revenue with their student athletes, how is that revenue distributed? And how does that impact NIL? If players are already getting a rev share, how is the rev share distributed? By the way, an interesting, I've talked about this a bunch. I know not everybody cares about this, but I am very interested in the business of sports. I think when you follow the money and the business side of things, it does tell you a lot about how and the direction things go. But my assumption with the rev share has always been with Title IX, whatever you spend on men's sports, you have to spend on women's sports. So if you have that $20 million or $22 million in rev share, then whatever you spend on men's sports, you have to spend on women. So like 11 million to men, 11 million to women. That apparently is not the case, or at least that's ambiguous at this point, where they're probably going to need some type of legal ruling from a court case on how that money can be distributed, because it sure sounded like with some conversations I had with folks at LSU is that is at bare minimum undecided at this point on how that rev share is going to work. And it might be something where like the rev share takes care of football, and then all the money from the collective takes care of all the other sports, which then if the collective keeps fundraising the way they are, might make you more competitive in the NIL space. If all the money you're spending from the collective that's going to football right now all of that would go to the other sports. Again, none of that is final. I want to be very clear about that. None of that is final, but those are the things that LSU and other athletic departments right now are working through. Like how in sharing $22 million in revenue with your student athletes, how do you structure that? How does that look? And so they're working through that right now. And it's going to be interesting. And one of my assumptions was Title IX would mean you have to split that evenly. Apparently that's not the case, or at least it's undecided if that's the case. Hey, Ron, good morning from Vegas. 122 in Vegas this weekend. Heat is much worse in Vegas than Louisiana. Ron, people who say, well, it's a dry heat. I'm like, that's true. There's no humidity, but like, you ever been inside an oven? That's what it's like being in the desert in July. In Vegas in July. It is like, you just feel like you're burning. Ryan, don't forget LSU still in the mix for 2 5-star receivers. Feel like this is a huge commitment month for the defense. Absolutely. Aaron, here's all the Drew comments. Barry, Steven, Rick, Aaron, he was in and out in a hurry, wasn't he? Lisa, what's good? Rick, the very best special guest. Abner, Rocky. Hope you get to see lots of colorful fireworks. I don't know, man. I think Drew was already in bed by the time the fireworks started, man. I don't know that he would want to be outside to see him. I definitely wasn't outside to watch fireworks. I think Drew was already asleep. I think we're all kind of just winding down a little bit. Joel, keeping Braswell in 25 is basically the same as sticking with Thompson in 23 after missing on others in the portal. I don't know that I agree with that. Thompson already. Thompson was a junior, by the way, so he still had leverage going into 23. And I think Thompson was a little more of a toolsy player than Braswell. Excuse me, my nose is itching. Sorry, that's gross, but sorry, my nose is itching. Not a bad comp, but just different because Thompson obviously still had his leverage going into his junior year in 23. Not a bad comp, but not exactly what and what. But yes, like if you had gotten Maui Ahuna, the thought was that Ahuna would have been your starting shortstop had he come in. Same with Gavin Keelan. Let's see. Dawson, I go to church on Sundays. It's why I don't like LSU football on Sundays. Gotcha. Well, but they're playing at night on Sunday, Dawson. You know what I mean? Like, so you can go to church Sunday morning, and then the game will be at 6:30 Central Time on that Sunday. Be 4:30 out in Vegas. Cortland Thompson's a national champion. It's true. It's one of the reasons to come back. I mean, I think that's going to be. Listen, if all else fails, right? I think that's what this comes down to for Braswell. Like, Braswell's not going to go in the top 10 rounds. And remember, like, it's worth saying it again. If you hear a player's name called in the top 10 rounds of the draft, that's where you have associated slot values. They've agreed to a number. The way that it works is team calls a player, says, hey, we're going to take you here. Will you take X? If the answer is yes, boom, they pick him. If the answer is no, they're on to the next. And it goes quickly like that. So you have to make quick decisions in those spots. So if you hear a player taken in the top 10 rounds, they've agreed to a deal and they're gone. After round 10 is where things can get interesting, where guys will make a decision to return or not. And I think Braswell's not going to go in the first 10 rounds. So let's say a team takes a flyer on him at the end of the draft and they offer him $80K, which I think is very realistic. Does LSU, if LSU doesn't land anybody else, do they go to Braswell and say, hey, look, we'll give you 100 to come back? 100, you make more money than you would there. You get to come play another year at LSU, try to win a national championship, get to Omaha, all that stuff. You're starting shortstop. Like that's appealing, right? That's an appealing option if you're Michael Braswell, if you're any player. So I think that's something we could see. Rex, good morning. Hey, Gunner, good morning. Let's see. If Braswell's gone in the draft, I could very well see Milam at short and JP at second, like the start of the year. Could be looking at Larson, Brown, Stanfield in the outfield. That's a possibility, although I think it's fair to say, Gunner, Pearson at second isn't your best option. Like, isn't your best version of Josh Pearson. That Terry always jokes that like anybody could play second. You just got to knock the ball down and make a short throw. And if that's what you have to do to get him in the lineup, fine. I'll also remind you that Josh Pearson is a career 250 hitter. Like, we love Josh Pearson for his big moments in the playoffs, and he's been huge in the postseason. But Pearson has not been a consistent bat, which is why he hasn't really played consistently. Pearson in his career, as a freshman, he hit 299. Sophomore, 226. This year, 244. He is a career 256 hitter. So, I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why it's sometimes a struggle to justify getting Pearson in there every day. So if he go, and Pearson's gonna be back. He's not a draft risk, really. But senior players played a ton of ball for you, had some huge moments in the postseason. Yes, I would love to see Pearson revert to like freshman form where he's a 300 hitter. Maybe gets to double-digit homers. I mean, he had 8 as a freshman and then 8 this past year. So, yeah, I mean, I think that would be awesome. But I would tell you also, I'd much rather get someone like Dickerson, who we were just talking about. Maybe he, Braswell, and Milam make up your infield. Tanner Reeves, is in that mix as well. So we'll see. Kobe Walker, good morning. Hey, Lou, starting to get the feeling LSU has a shot at getting Schmidt on campus. Jay hasn't broke the bank on getting major D1 star in the portal. Understand though, Lou, you're not talking about the same numbers here. Okay. Like I told you that I was told that LSU's the NIL offer that the collective made for Keelan was the most LSU has the biggest NIL offer for baseball that LSU's made. That's nowhere near what William Schmidt would get in the draft. Like, not even scratching the surface of a guy that's probably going to be offered $3 million. So, like, could you put together some type of deal for William Schmidt over 3 years where he gets X? And you could, but it still wouldn't touch what he would get if he signs out of the draft. Now, I want to be clear also, and I said this on yesterday's show if you were here and heard me say it. I did talk to one person very familiar with the draft, let me say that, a couple of days ago, who told me that they have this sneaking suspicion that William Schmidt is going to end up on campus. I will believe that when I see it, because I've just been through this so many times that you can call me a skeptic or whatever. I've just been through this so many times with the draft and players that have said they're coming, and then the phone rings and, it's what it is. So, eh. Cool. I just texted about an interview. Sorry. Please smash the like button if you would, subscribe to the channel. Hey, remember, Brock, Rock, and Wine coming up 3 weeks from Saturday, July 27th in Tiger Stadium, the South Stadium Club. Get your tickets at brortho.com, brortho.com. Info scrolling here on the bottom. You need a roof, give us a shout at Parrish. Yesterday, that rain that came through. If you got a leaky roof, think you might have roof damage, give us a shout. Parrishbuilt.com, parrishbuilt.com. Just fill out the form on the homepage, parrishbuilt.com. And, of course, Restored Motions, restoredmotions.com. Shout out Crystal Poche. Was over at Crystal's on Wednesday. She's the best. She's a magician. If you're in pain, she'll make you feel better. She'll get you out of it, I promise. Okay, a couple more here. Let's see. Cortland, LSU's pretty high on the revenue scale, but not profit. Their expenses are pretty close to revenue. Cortland, so to be very clear, there's only a handful of programs in the entire country that actually turn a profit. LSU is one of them, but there are not many. Most either are subsidized by the university or their state, or break even or lose money. They run at a deficit and then are subsidized to make up the gap. LSU is one of the few that turns a profit, just to be very clear on that. So, yes, it's not much. Like, hang on. So in 2023, the fiscal year, LSU profited $1.36 million in fiscal 2023. When you do nearly $200 million in revenue, let me see if I can find out what the revenue is. I think the revenue is in the, so more than 200. So LSU generated 2023. LSU generated more than 200 million in revenue. All right, so they generated 200 million in revenue. Then they had all their expenses, right, from scholarships and coaches' salaries and travel and recruiting budgets and everything, right? 200 million in revenue, and on 200 million in revenue, they profited 1.36. 1.36. They've got it pretty much down to a science on the line items of the money they needed to generate and the expenses that they have. That's why the 20 million in expenses the 20 million in revenue share for student athletes is going to be a challenge, because you're operating lean, like with no profit margin. So if you're spending everything you make and now you're adding $20 million a year in expenditures, you have to either find a way to generate 20 million more in revenue, or you have to cut expenses by 20 million. So what do you cut? That's the big question. But anyway, but Cortland, to say LSU's high on the revenue scale, but their expenses, but not profit, nobody's high on profit. Like, that's not an LSU thing. That's an everybody thing. They spend what they make, and most spend more than they make, and they're subsidized by their university. Lance, morning, Matt, does rev sharing ultimately lead to no longer giving scholarships, or would scholarships be in addition to rev share? Remember, scholarships are from the university. That is a university spend. So you're still going to give scholarships, and you have to pay that money. That's an important thing that I think a lot of people don't know, is that scholarships are among the highest expenditure an athletic department has, because that's not a deferred payment. Like, the university doesn't just waive that. The athletic department has to pay the university for those scholarships. So if you look at LSU's scholarship expense, let's see. I'm looking at the rev report right here. Let me see if I can find it. Scholarships. So LSU spent $13.6 million in scholarships. This was 2022. So LSU Athletics had to pay the university $13.678 million for their student athlete scholarships. That's not deferred. You have to pay that money to the university for your scholarships. So no. So point is, somebody's still got to pay for these kids to be enrolled in school, and the athletic department's going to do it. So no, that's going to be in addition to. Cortland, I've been in the desert in July. 1 S in desert, 2 S's in dessert. Remember, 2 S's in dessert, because with dessert, you always want more. It's not as bad as Louisiana. I completely disagree with you. It's different, but it's just as bad. I mean, being outside in Las Vegas in July, you're just burning alive. Makes defense great again. Good thing the game against USC will be inside. That's the only way they could build a stadium in Las Vegas is if it was covered. Cliff, I can see now. Matt Moscona says revenue sharing will force NIL to all of the sports. Women's sports won't get an equal share. Glenn Thomasy, good news for the defense. Cortland, I think the comp he was making is called them subpar. Wayne Parker, what's your end game opinion of NIL? Does eventually get so out of hand the federal government gets involved? I think the NCAA would love for the federal government. They've been wanting the federal government to get involved. I don't think the federal government has any interest in getting involved. And I think you'd have to define out of hand. I mean, how much is Caitlin Clark getting paid by Gatorade or Nike or whatever her apparel deal is, right? Is that out of hand? Or is it what she's worth? Who's to determine that? I think that's what the government's looking at saying. John Sibley Butler, if players are employers, let's get rid of all the support systems, academic support. But they're not, right? That's the thing, John. They're not employees. That's the whole thing. And that's been determined many, many times in courts, that players are not employees of the university. Trey Fisher. What up, Trey Fisher? Good morning. Hope you had a great 4th. Malik, where does LSU football rank in the NIL collectives, if you had to guess? So, Malik, there are, and I've had many conversations about this, there are about a dozen collectives that have clearly separated themselves. LSU is not one of them. There's about a dozen. The unfortunate part for LSU is a lot of them are in the SEC. A lot of them you're competing against. So there's about a dozen. After that dozen, there's a group of about 30 that are all really comparable. LSU's in that mix. And I would tell you that in the last year, they moved themselves higher in that mix. The really tricky part is that relative to the rest of college football, LSU is doing well. The problem is that dozen or so at the top that I mentioned, you're talking about schools like Texas, and Texas A&M and Ole Miss and Tennessee, Florida State. That's the part that stinks. Is you're going head to head with a lot of these programs. Dawson, one non-conference that will be great to see in Tiger Stadium is UCLA. Hope we get payback from 21. Hopefully it's a night game on ESPN or ABC. Yeah, and look, let's be very clear too. This is going to be a very different UCLA team. They don't have a quarterback, new head coach after Chip Kelly left to go call plays at Ohio State. Deshaun Foster, remember the former UCLA running back, is their new head coach. They lost their DC to USC. I think UCLA is going to be not good at all this year. I think this LSU should be a double-digit favorite in Tiger Stadium and should roll over UCLA. I think they will. Make defense great again. Matt, do you think each individual institution will have their own rev share model? Will they pay starters more than others? Will it be uniform down the line? That's a great question, and that's what they're trying to figure out. I think they're going to do their best to determine value. So to your point, like Jaden Daniels obviously should make more in a rev share than someone on the golf team. Right. What metric do you use, an AI model? I don't know. That's what they're trying to figure out. And I know a lot of you won't remember this, but I told you, I've been telling you for a year that, I had a firsthand conversation with an administrator that LSU was working on the inevitability of a rev share, not the possibility, the inevitability of a rev share for as early as 2025. And that's exactly what transpired. So it's not like LSU got caught and they're just now starting to talk about this. They've literally, I was told a year ago that they were already putting these models in place of what that would look like. Rocky, enjoying Locked On. Thank you. I think yesterday's episode was the best you've done. Let's get that podcast in the top 10. Thank you, Rocky. I appreciate it. Yeah, man, if you would, I'd greatly appreciate anybody Locked On LSU on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. I'd greatly appreciate it. And just very candidly, YouTube is great. I would love for you all to go subscribe on YouTube and watch there. But our real revenue opportunity for someone like me on Locked On is on the audio side. Because audio, just the money spent in audio podcasting does outpace YouTube right now. So I would just be very greatly appreciative, and I've been very candid with y'all as well. Like I don't, there's no salary involved with that. It's a rev share. So whatever revenue the podcast generates, I share that with Locked On, or Locked On shares that with me. So, I would greatly appreciate it. The only way that I do well with that is if people listen and subscribe and like it also. I'd appreciate it much. Robert Potts, Matt, just joining. Who did LSU miss on? So Gavin Keelan is, who we've been talking about, the shortstop from Louisville. He picked Tennessee. So, and I was told that was LSU's most significant NIL offer in baseball to date. And Tennessee offered relatively a smidge more. So effectively it was down to LSU and Tennessee, and he picked Tennessee. All right. Speaking of Locked On, this is Zach Blackerby, the host of Locked On Auburn, who's also the administrator of the entire Locked On College network, who tongue-in-cheek calls me GOAT all the time, which is hilarious. He'll send me texts like, "Are you a pygmy? Would you consider yourself more of a pygmy or a?" But I'm like, I have to look. I'm like, what is he talking about? Oh, they're goats. They're types of goats, breeds of goats. I don't know. I got to find myself. I got to find the comments. Where am I? Sorry, y'all. I lost my spot. There we go. Okay. Ryan Pike, what NIL numbers are we talking about with Moore? I don't know. I have no idea what Oregon gave him. I don't know. Haven't asked. Don't know. John, in the future, no journalist should write about the education of college athletes. Oh, okay, John. I get it. You're where you are, but that's fine. I understand your point of view. I happen to completely disagree. They still go to school. They're still getting an education, and it's absurd that, again, you're mad at the wrong person, John. You're mad at the kids when you should be mad at the adults, because the adults are the one who found ways over the last 30 years to dramatically scale the revenue around college sports. So they all got richer, to where coaches, remember when Nick Saban got paid $1.2 million a year at LSU in the year 2000, that was like mind bending that someone was spending $1.2 million on a football coach. Now we have coordinators making double that. Okay. We got position. Bo Davis, the defensive line coach, is making more than that. Everyone scaled the revenue so dramatically to where all the adults found a way to get really rich with free labor. And the free labor finally stood up and said, bleep you. And now you have what you have. You have what you have, not because the kids are greedy, because the adults in the room screwed it up. The adults in the room are the ones that said, hey, I know what we can do. We can create more bowl games and get them all sponsored. We can have more TV networks and more inventory, and we can add a 12th game, and we can add conference championship games. We'd add, and we can have more sponsorships everywhere and generate our revenue, and we can all get richer. And finally, it got to the point where the players were like, and it started in 2016. It really started in 2016 when Fournette, McCaffrey, and those guys opted out of the bowl game. And they were called quitters and cheaters and quitters and losers and all this sort of. And the NFL said, we'll take y'all both in the top 10. Because the NFL doesn't care about a stupid, meaningless bowl game, and neither should they. Shouldn't go risk themselves. So again, John, you're mad at the wrong person. You're mad at the young people who finally stood up and said, I've had enough of this. Like, y'all are everyone's getting rich but us. And if you try to come back at me with, but the education, that's fine. There was a day and age when but the education was worth it. It ain't worth it no more. Not when LSU can make millions and millions and millions of dollars on Jaden Daniels winning a Heisman Trophy and Jaden Daniels gets nothing? No. Get lost, bro. And in what other reality is that okay? Like, if there's a student at LSU who starts a YouTube channel and does music or whatever and goes super viral and starts making millions of dollars, that's okay. But the guy who putting on pads and going and playing on a Saturday night can't make anything? Get lost, bro. I have no time or tolerance for that. Carter, what does LSU's rotation look like for next year? Yeah, Carter, I would tell you Chase Shores, Cade Anderson, Griffin Herring. I think that those would probably be your first three. I would be fascinated to see if Devin Sheeran from Mount St. Mary's gets in the mix. Zach Cohen, of course, from Wofford, was their Friday guy this year, would certainly be in the mix as well. Jacob Myers is interesting. If he can cut down the walks, he can absolutely be one of those guys. That's 6 that I've mentioned. That's before we even talk about someone like if William Schmidt shows up on campus or, anybody else in this signing class that could potentially step in and be a starter for you. But if I had to guess, like today, Shores, Anderson, Herring, I think would be my 3. If I had to guess today. Rex, could it be they don't want to pay a high dollar, not because they can't afford it, but it could upset the apple cart with the other players? No. Cortland, I love how people lay the NIL stuff on coaches like they have the ability to unilaterally make those decisions. Yeah, I mean, you have to have the money to spend. Avery, let's see, just a thought. If Braswell goes, what do we think about Gavin Guidry, Stephen Milam as our middle infielders? I believe Gavin Guidry is talented enough to play somewhere on the middle infield. I do not believe Jay Johnson and LSU are going to play Gavin Guidry anywhere on the middle infield. It would be I think a last minute sort of desperation heave if they had to do that. Again, not saying that's what I would do, or I think that's where I'm just telling you from what I understand based on this staff's feeling on where Gavin Guidry fits, it's not in the middle infield. Could that change? Maybe. But I even asked that question this offseason, and it's made pretty clear to me that that's probably not the path they're going. That if he wanted to play infield and hit, he was probably going to have to go somewhere else. Oh, let's see. There are a school or two above LSU in revenue, but have less expenses. LSU's expenses are high compared to other schools, same revenue class. Let's see. Make defense great again. Matt, how much will the new TV deal add to the profit? Will it offset that? Won't be about $20 million more a year. We'll only know next year when they go to Destin for the spring meetings and they all get their checks and we know what the total rev share is. We know the value of the TV deal. And remember, it's going to be split 17 ways because you have now 16 member institutions and the league office gets a share. So what all that looks like, what that final bottom line number is, I don't know. But again, the point is LSU and everybody needs to have been preparing for this inevitability. Joel, do MLB teams make draft prospects sign affidavits before they're officially picked so players with college leverage can't go back or ask for money? No. There's no affidavits or anything like that. But you agree to the number. And if you agree to the number, it's because you want the number. It's very rare that someone taking the top 10 rounds ultimately doesn't sign their deal. That happened a few years ago with Kumar Rocker from Vanderbilt. He was, I think, the 9th pick. They had their agreement in place, and then I think it was the Mets, right? The Mets then went back on that offer because they didn't like something they saw on an MRI or something like that, and so they came with a lower offer after that, and Rocker was like, no. And so he went and pitched independently for a year, then went back in the draft. Cortland, my bad with dessert. The desert, yeah. No worries, Cortland. I told you, it's not you, it's me. Like, I'm just incapable of seeing something like that and not mentioning it. It's not you, it's me. I'm very well aware that it's me. Most normal human beings would see that and not care because I knew exactly what you meant. But I feel like I would want somebody to tell me. That's all. Scott Planche, steam, bake, or boil, you're still cooked. Exactly. Good way to put it. Okay. Cliff, whenever the day comes that you let a grammar issue slide, I'm playing the lottery. Cliff knows me well. Ashton Roberts missed earlier in the show. Who did LSU miss on in baseball? Gavin Keelan, the shortstop from Louisville. He's going to Tennessee. Chance, I've been to Abu Dhabi where it was 115 degrees and 90% humidity, evil weather combo. That does sound awful. Okay. Texas does not have tons of NIL money. That's factually inaccurate, John. John, you're on one today, man. I don't know where you're coming from, but like, this is factually inaccurate to say Texas does not have tons of NIL money. Now I just think you're trolling. Because I can tell you for a fact, I know what Texas's collective raised a year ago. And it's a year ago, a lot more than what LSU raised. I don't know where you're coming from with that, bro. I disagree completely with your opinion on the student athlete. This thing you're saying with Texas is just factually inaccurate. That's like you're trying to tell me 2 + 2 is 5. How does title line affect rev share? That's we talked about it a bit ago, Razor. That's what we don't know. My assumption had been with title line, whatever you spend on men's, you have to spend on women's sports. And I was in a meeting 2 weeks ago with some people at LSU, and I brought that up and was told, not exactly. They're sorting through that right now. Brian, I love that Braswell may come back. He had over 300. Nice to see the pop in the bat at the end of the year. I'll have a senior player versus a portal player 1,000%. That's actually 10,000%. Yeah. Brian, I think it would be a huge win to have Braswell back. It's certainly a luxury. Now, would you rather a guy like Gavin Keelan, who is a projected top 10 pick in the 25 draft? Yes, of course you would. Better prospect, higher ceiling, better player, all that stuff. But would I rather Braswell over whatever options you may have right now? Of course I would. Yes, I'm with you. Cortland, calling it free labor can irk some people who has to pay their tuition to these schools, $60,000 to $70,000 in benefits. Yeah, and none of that's coming from the they're not getting any of the revenue shared with them that they get, and that's it. It is free labor. Like, they're not paid employees. You could talk about the benefits, but Cortland, think of it this way: if the benefits that the student athlete was getting outweighed the value they were bringing, why would the schools and athletic departments continue to do it? Why would they continue to operate under the system if it wasn't worth it? LA Mom 2020, JSB, Chance Cliff. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Dawson, if I was doing a bowl game, I want to make sure players get benefits for playing in the bowl. They can't get nothing for playing in a bowl game. I think it's wrong if I want to. Yeah, they get benefits. They get like a $500 Best Buy gift card, a hat, a watch, some cool stuff like that. John's on one. No high school student is worth millions. Students are employees, despite what the court says. Yeah, no students worth millions. John, unless if the free market says they are, John. That's your opinion. But if somebody is willing to pay it, they're worth it. What is your home worth? What someone's willing to pay for it. There's a market for everything, brother. You may not like it, but that's called free enterprise. That's what you're missing. Like, yes, there are high school students worth that. 100% there are. You may think it's ridiculous. Your brain may not comprehend that value, but someone thinks they are. So they are. Z-Man, I'm way behind. Quinn Ewers. Did you watch him in the playoffs against Washington? He was checked down, Charlie. Whatever you say, brother. I also watched him play all season long. He's a great arm talent, a phenomenal player. I watched him go to Tuscaloosa and crush Alabama. Yeah, I would take Quinn Ewers with the Saints in a heartbeat. David Bass, good morning. Cortland, doesn't this make that revenue from bowls even more valuable? I don't understand. Doesn't what? Sorry. Gulf South, wish I could have received $100K in free tuition, housing, etc., then have it written off as free labor. I'm fine with NIL and players making money. It's nonsense to say it's free labor. It is free labor. They're not making a salary. You could say they're getting benefits, but that's not sharing in the revenue that you're generating. What is confusing about this? Like, and by the way, you wouldn't have had any value to warrant such thing. Then how do you explain the student that gets academic benefits but can still go make money? It's ridiculous, man. And they're not actually generating any revenue for the university. Let's see. Malik, I need whatever John is on. This is great. John, I'm a professor at Texas for years and raised the NIL money for Texas. John, I don't believe you at all. I don't believe at all that you're raising NIL money. You're sitting there with is that an LSU jacket in your picture? It is factually inaccurate for you to say that you are raising money for NIL for years at Texas, like when you're sitting there with an LSU jacket on. And I've had conversations with the people who are, I don't want to say anymore. If you are actually telling me, and by the way, I don't know any professor at any university that's on anybody's NIL within their collective, but even if you're being intellectually dishonest if you're trying to tell me you're raising money for the University of Texas and that Texas doesn't have a big collective. Like, either that or you just don't know what other collectives have. Yeah, I think John is just on one today. Let's see. Colin, what's a good AC place? River City's 1 hour air, 752-0001, 752-0001. Cortland, revenue share, need revenue. You're typically anti-bowls. I'm not anti-bowls. I love bowl games. Give me all the bowl games. Give me more football on TV. Give me more bowl games. Yeah, no doubt. Professors at Texas who are raising money for their collective, right? All of them, very commonly, jump in LSU media live streams and say things like, "You are wrong, bro." Got it, John. Thanks. You're oozing credibility with your LSU blazer there, telling me about how you're a professor at Texas raising money for Texas's NIL. See ya. Got it. Hilarious. Good stuff, John. A little more forethought next time. Let's see. Student athletes. That is a good reference to a South Park episode. Anyway, so Corlin, I'm not anti-bowls. I love bowl games. I am also okay and understand why bowl games exist. Bowl games exist to to make money for the men in the ugly blazers like John, and for the schools that participate, because all the bowl tie-ins are guaranteed payouts that go into the coffers that are distributed. And for all of that reason, all those reasons, like why the I don't know, the Cheez-It Bowl. The Cheez-It Bowl exists as a money grab. And if a player has an NFL future and decides, I don't want to play in that game, I don't blame them for not wanting to play in that game, because the game exists for one reason and one reason only. It's a money grab. And they need the players to go play in the game. All right. Cameron, morning, Matthew. Been listening to Chuck Oliver lately. He thinks Alabama can win national title this year. Your thoughts? I fundamentally disagree with him. I mean, well, let me rephrase that. I don't know how everything will stack up with a 12-team playoff. That's the thing that we don't know, right? So does it make it easier or harder? Easier because more teams get access, harder because there's more games you have to win. I've said this many times. I think Alabama is going to be a good team. I don't think they're going to fall off a cliff and all of a sudden be a 5-win football team. I think they're still going to be very good. I do not believe Jalen Milroe is a championship caliber quarterback. And boy, if you look at Alabama last year, right? Alabama last year with Nick Saban, right? And a more talented roster than you have this year because of what you lost in the draft and in the portal. Remember, Isaiah Bond's gone. The receiver transferred in from Georgia. Receiver transferred from Georgia is now in the NFL. God dog, and I'm blanking. Gone. You lost a couple of starters on your offensive line. Again, their roster, based on what they lost and turning over 40 players, half their roster, 40 players, is not going to be the same roster. They lost to Texas at home by double digits. They eked past South Florida 17-3. They had a close call in College Station against A&M. Close call against Arkansas, where if you remember, that was that 24-21 game where Arkansas was, a stop. They were a stop at midfield away from getting the ball back with a chance to go tie or win the game. Who knows what would have happened against LSU if Dallas Turner hadn't concussed Jaden Daniels. And then remember the Auburn game, Auburn had them beat. Like, that was an epic gag by Auburn in that game to not run out the clock and finish that game. Point is, Alabama a year ago was a breath away from being a 3-loss regular season team. Certainly they should have been a 2-loss team and out of the playoff. Like, because the Auburn was more Auburn losing the game than Alabama winning it. Now, Auburn opened the door and Alabama made the play. But my point is, that was a team that really had their struggles a year ago. Now, they beat Georgia in the SEC championship game, which was incredible because Nick is incredible. And then they went and they got manhandled by Michigan. I just don't think their roster is as good as they were a year ago. And Kalen DeBoer is not Nick Saban. Are they in the blue chip ratio? Like, can they win it? Sure. But this is from, Jermaine Burton. Thank you, Cortland. That's exactly what I was thinking of. Jermaine Burton. Thank you. Merger asked, where did all the hype from Milroe come from? Last game we saw him play, he was not good. Yeah, he threw for like 115 yards against Michigan. He's a phenomenal athlete, and his legs beat LSU. I just don't think Jalen Milroe is the guy that's going to sit there and pick apart defenses. And I'm going to tell you the biggest thing. Some of the convos I've had are like around Bama since DeBoer's been there is just how much better it is, right? Like better, maybe meaning easier. Like there's more access and the coaches are more friendly and it's not as strict and regimented as with Nick. And I'm going, you know what all that was? That was Nick's culture. That was his process. And Kalen DeBoer comes in and all of a sudden everything's easier. It's not supposed to be easy. It's what made Nick. And I think that's why it's so hard to replace a legend, because for 17 years, everything's been done a certain way. The expectation's a certain way. Everyone was accountable to Nick Saban. And it's just not that way anymore. And it's not to say Kalen DeBoer is a bad coach. I think he's a very good coach. But I could also point out Washington last year, if you remember. Washington needed a miracle in the Apple Cup and a miracle in the regular season against Oregon to win those games. And they would have been a 2-loss team and not have sniffed the playoff. If that's the case, is Kalen DeBoer Alabama's coach today? Kalen DeBoer had a great game plan against Texas in the Sugar Bowl. Great game plan. And Michael Penix was fantastic and all that sort of stuff. I mean, again, like, could Alabama be a 10-2 team and get in the playoff? Yeah. I think more likely they're a 9-3 team that misses the playoffs this year. Let's see. Who was an LSU commitment? Sorry, I was trying to do this. Sorry, Cortland. I'm not sure what that comment was about. My apologies. Ashton said, who do you think is LSU's must-win game for this season? Well, I think if you're 5-0 to start the season, meaning you got to go beat Southern Cal and Vegas, and you got to go to South Carolina and win that game at 11 a.m. If you do that, you'll be 5-0. You'll beat Nichols, you'll beat South Alabama, you'll beat UCLA. If you're 5-0 going into your open date, you're at home against Ole Miss, and I think that's the game. If you beat Ole Miss, you get to 6-0, and after that, I don't know that I see 3 losses on the schedule. Like, could you lose at A&M? Sure. Could you lose to Bama? Sure. Could you lose at Florida? Tough place to play. Could you lose at home to Oklahoma? Okay. Like, I just don't think you're losing all those games. I don't think you're losing 3 of those games. You know what I mean? So I think if you beat Ole Miss and you start 6-0, I think worst case in the second half of the season is 4-2. And if you're 10-2 with a head-to-head over Ole Miss, I think you're in the playoff. So, I would tell you, I would tell you Ole Miss is the one that I would really, really look at. LSU needs to give the same welcome to Oklahoma they gave the Aggies, beat them for a decade. I'd love to see that. Take Keith, at least the Corey ain't going to Texas. Amen. Gulf South, Alabama's 4th and a miracle last year go down in history as legendary as Kick Six. Probably not as legendary as Kick Six. I mean, the Kick Six may be. I mean, the Kick Six is right there with the band is on the field and Flutie to Phelan is like the most iconic plays in the history of the sport. And that rivalry, it'll be a massive one that people talk about forever. Would have been even more so if Bama had gone on to win a championship. Let's see. One thing that's sad about last year is Florida State getting left out of the playoff. The committee needs to stop doing that. Yeah, I mean, I was very, very outspoken on that as well. Talking about Burton. Oh, once in LSU. Got it. Thank you. Let's see. Ole Miss is a must for me. I want to keep them out of the playoffs. Judo 4 is Perkins and Weeks every down linebackers this year. What base defense does Baker run? Where does Penn fit? Yeah, they're going to run a 4-2-5 as a base. So you'll have your 2 off-ball linebackers, and I think that's going to be Greg Penn and Harold Perkins. But I hope they play with Weeks a whole bunch more this year. I think we all hope for that. The big difference is they have what they call it. He has what he calls a star linebacker position, or a star, which is kind of a hybrid safety linebacker. And that's where Major Burns is going to play. I think that suits him much better. Major Burns, I don't think, is someone you want coverage on the back end. And I think moving Sage Ryan to safety actually is more natural position for him, which would serve him well. Hey! What? Okay. There he goes. All right, we might just be about done. All year at Don Juan last season, Cliff was very outspoken with his opposition to Greg Penn being on the field on third down. And hey, bud. Hey, bud. What do you see?
What does that say?
What do you see?
What does that say?
You tell me. What does that say?
Lease and landscape.
Lease and landscape. Good pronunciation, buddy. Very good. And then Cliff, what game was it? Was it Missouri? Hang on, I gotta find it now. There was a game where wasn't Missouri. Oh, it was A&M. It was A&M. He intercepted. That's right. He intercepted Max Johnson. Greg Penn intercepted Max Johnson in the A&M game on a third down, and the whole place was like, like all on Cliff. Oh man, that was good. Yeah. If OBJ doesn't return the field goal for a touchdown earlier in the season, does Auburn ever do it? No. I mean, Malzahn's even said that. So for those that don't know that reference that Gortland's talking about, so LSU played UAB earlier in the season, and they had a kick six. They had Odell back on a long field goal attempt. Odell returned it for a touchdown. They had a kick six in that game. And so when LSU played Auburn, Gus said when they were scouting LSU, looking at game film, they saw that play, and so they put it in. And so that's why Chris Davis was back against Bama on the kick six, was because they saw Odell do it earlier in the year. That's why they put it in. Max didn't play in that game? Oh, I'm looking at this right here. It says, hang on. Here's a video right here. I mean, bro, that was Max Johnson to throw it. That's Max, yeah. 16? Who's the lefty quarterback wearing 16 for A&M?
I see it.
Huh. Who was that then? You might be right. Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, Max was 14, wasn't he? That's 16. I'm looking at the video right here. I didn't realize there was another lefty. I think that's Max Johnson, man. Hang on. Now I'm interested. You might be right. I'm just curious now. I just want to know. Was it Henderson? Jalen Henderson? Let's see. Jalen Henderson was the kid from was the transfer from New Mexico. Let's see, where is it? Yeah, Jalen Henderson is who it was. No, it was Connor Wegman. Connor Wegman was already hurt. Yeah. Let's see. Gulf South. Drew isn't afraid of the grass guys anymore. No, man. Yeah, you're right. So there was a time where we had to like schedule with them when, like, we had to find out when they were going to be here so we could get him out of the house because he would be like paralyzed with fear when the grass crew was here. And look at him. He's sitting in his chair watching. He's just sitting in his chair watching the. What are you watching? Huh? The blower?
Lawnmower.
Oh, the lawnmower.
And not lawnmower.
What comes after the lawnmower? The blower.
Whoa.
Okay.
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 Whoa. Okay. Whoa.
Okay. So, but yes, he was at one point paralyzed by fear of
Me.
the yard crew, so we would have to get out of the house when they were coming. And now it's the highlight, one of the highlights of his week when he gets to see them. He watches YouTube videos all the time of backpack blowers and everything, and like he loves the lawn equipment and all, so he loves to watch them cut the grass and weed eat and yeah. All right, Cliff, here you go. Here's your moment, Cliff. Erica, Cliff Nelson, ASCII Rock. Can you? Oh, she's on a ladder. She's decorating for Drew's birthday, which I kind of want to just show y'all what it looks like right now in here, just so you'll get a sense of how much this party, decorating for this party, overtakes our home. But I won't. Erica, sit down. Eric, I'll just ask you very loudly. You can't. Shit, let me focus real quick. Focus. Is mommy trying to focus? Cliff said, "Can lemon cookies be made outside of football season?" Yeah. Ooh, we got a yeah. Okay. It's a blower. What are you doing? That was it. That was it. Hey, what are you doing? What do you see? Hey. Good luck ever trying to break his attention when he's looking at that stuff. Break. Who says that? Drew says that? Okay. What looks good? Oh, can I show everybody?
Just the ceiling.
Oh, just the ceiling. This might be a challenge. Okay. All right, I think we're done. Shout out to Brock. Brock Rock and Wine, y'all. July 27th. Get your tickets, brortho.com. Presented by Audi of Baton Rouge. And, of course, Parrish Construction and Roofing. Parrishbuilt.com. Parrishbuilt.com. Murder Giraffe said lemon cookies outside of football season. Thought that was illegal. Okay. And Dawson said happy early birthday, dude. Thank you, Dawson. Appreciate that very much, man. Yeah, the 18th, man. 18th. Okay. He's gone. All right. We are done. Y'all have an awesome day. Thanks so much for being here. As always, YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. What? He is so excited. Okay. Oh, Elmo has mail. He's going, Elmo has mail. Sesame Street episode. Okay. Thanks so much. Y'all have a great day. See ya. Peace.